But the question I have is, it seems as though this country is subsidizing and sponsoring oil exploration and oil drilling, Mexico, Brazil, and a lot of countries that don't like us. This country is sitting on probably one of the world's greatest resources of oil and gas and coal. And yet it seems, in my opinion, that this administration is holding us hostage in our own country. Why? I don't understand why the price of oil is so high and we're not taking care of it on a local level.
Yeah, and I guess I have concerns with this administration, but also Republicans had a chance to do something as well on energy policy, and they failed too. I think both parties have failed this country in regard to an energy policy that's going to work. But I would agree with you. We have resources in this country. I think we should pursue them. And I'm in favor. I believe in all the above. Wind, solar, nuclear, coal, gas, oil. Let's look at all of our energy sources in an effort to become energy independent. And I think, we'd also, do we want to go to a cleaner source of energy? Absolutely. Can you do that right now? No. I mean, we don't have the ability and the technology to do it now. So you're going to take time to get there. But let's look at all sources. Right now, through one of the House committees, we're working on bringing forward our energy policy. But I would agree with you. We say let's pursue oil exploration off of the coast of Brazil. We haven't. I believe this number is right. I believe it's been since 1981 that we've actually looked at what kind of reserves we have off the east coast and west coast of this country. And if you look at the development of technology over the course of the last 30 years and what we can actually access with regard to oil, it has improved dramatically. And one other thing too, I believe there's a lot of regulation that takes place right now. I don't believe in overregulation, but I do believe in smart regulation. And I look at what happened in the Gulf. I think today is the anniversary of what happened in the Gulf, and that's an absolute travesty that we don't have regulations in place to make sure we can cut off a well spewing oil into the Gulf. And I think we have to make sure we have policies in place that we can do it safely. And I think the technology is there to do it. It's they weren't spending the money, and they didn't have the oversight to do it. So if you're gonna have the privilege of going out there and getting some resources, let's make sure it's done the appropriate way. And I don't think we saw that taking place in the Gulf. Yes?
Well, one thing you just talked about the oil stuff is when that spill happened, the oil's going out into the Gulf of Mexico and was coming ashore. The Congress dictated after Exxon Valdez that they're supposed to have X number of skimmers or whatever on standby and stuff. And then when the Gulf happened, where's the skimmers? Oh, we never allocated the money for it. Yeah. If you're going to we've got all kinds of regulations, we got all kinds of laws. We just don't ever enforce anything. Yeah. I mean, let's quit making new laws, new policies, go back to the books, find out what we got there, and enforce the damn thing.
Point well made. Absolutely. Yeah.
I'm looking at the chart and I see a gross domestic product problem. You're using the gross domestic production as a basis for our debt. What proportion of our debt in comparison to GDP. And since I've entered the workforce back in the 70s, it's been constant downsizing, outsourcing, sending the jobs away. And then as people make less, of course we have less money, because if your wages are less, your taxes are less. And the whole thing is to constantly bring the wages down here and then complain that we don't have enough money for the programs. And people that worked all their lives, just as you said, are waiting for these programs. I've been paying since my 16th birthday when I first started working. Yeah. And then I'm under 55, so of course I'll be cut. But we need to do something to get some work here. These companies should be charged some sort of fees for using our infrastructure to make their profits. If they're here using our roads, our highways, our airports, everything that it takes, and they're saying, wow, we're a great American corporation, but sorry, we're creating jobs in China, we're creating jobs in India. What good does that do for the average American? Then you get a call from a call center You ever talk to an American? No. Do they know anything? Will they answer your call? No. Will you be able to even
Understand that?
legibly communicate with them?
Yeah.
But I think that we got to do something to get some jobs going here.
I agree.
And jobs, not Walmart jobs, some real jobs where people are paying back into the system. Because if you look 1950s and the 1960s, people were paying that down because that was the growth part of America. That was our industrial revolution, and we need to bring that industrial revolution back.
I agree with you. Let's talk about jobs then for a little bit. I would agree with you. Part of this is growth. If I can just, I don't have a, if you look at what happens when you have economic downturns, they can be steep or they can be kind of U-shaped or V-shaped, right? What's fascinating since World War II, when you have a downturn, it's symmetrical. So if you have a U-shaped downturn, you'll have a U-shaped recovery. If you have a V-shaped downturn, you'll have a V-shaped recovery. If you look at all the data from the prior recessions, that holds true.
But we're the only ones that, in the middle class, the bottom, the small businessmen that are feeling the economy, and the ones way up top are making more money than they made even in the good times.
I'll get your point. What's happened here is we've had a steep decline, and we've had it pop back up only marginally, and then it's flatlined. We don't have the job growth that we've had before in other recoveries. It should be far much further along, and with far greater GDP growth than we're seeing today. And I guess I would submit two things, and I'm going to have you probably push back at me, and that's okay. We've done things differently in this downturn than we've done in other downturns. One, we've said, listen, let's not look to the private sector to grow our economy out. Let's look to the government to engage in a nearly $1 trillion stimulus package. That's different than what we've done in the past. Massive spending. At a time, we've also changed the rules up. We've done a new health care reform that has provided uncertainty into the marketplace. And we've done a whole banking reform with regard to Dodd-Frank, where a lot of people go, we don't know the impact of what this is going to have in our community. And I think from there, it's had an impact on what would normally be a pretty steep recovery. It hasn't happened. In regard to your point, though, let me answer your question. I had a chance to sit down with the CEO of Microsoft. He was here seeing the president of China when he was in town. And they invited 5 or 6 freshmen to sit down at a conference table with him in the Capitol, and they asked me to do it, and so I was happy to talk to the CEO of Microsoft. And basically he said this, he said, our first concern at Microsoft is that the Chinese steal all of our software. They pay like for 15% of the software that they use, but they steal the rest of it. There's no laws in place to make sure we can get paid for the software. Number one. Number two, he said, we educate some of the brightest minds in America. There's the brightest minds in the world in America, like at MIT and at Harvard, and we don't let any of those minds stay here. We make them go back to their countries of origin, or maybe we should try to keep those new innovative minds in our country. So that's problem number two. He said, number three, he said, we were going to do a new expansion at Microsoft, right? And to do that expansion in America, it was going to cost us an extra $1 billion to do it here versus somewhere else. To which I was like, why is it going to cost an extra $1 billion to do this here? He said, well, if you look at mandates and if you look at regulations in America, they're going to increase the costs. But he also said, if you look at the way American taxes its businesses, what they do is say, listen, if you're an American business and you make money overseas, when you bring that money back home, you pay corporate taxes on it when you repatriate those funds. And money, you might go, that is a great idea. You should pay taxes when you bring the money home. The problem is no one else does that. We're the only country that's doing that. Most countries are saying, listen, we want these profits to come home, so they reinvest these profits in our country's innovation, in our country's jobs. So when they calculated that that cost of repatriation, along with the mandates and the regulation, we sat at, they said it's $1 billion extra. So I said, well, where did you do it? And I guess where did Microsoft do their expansion? Vancouver, British Columbia. They did the expansion. They're a Seattle-based company that went right across the border to make the expansion.